Welcome back. Up till now, we have been discussing certain symptoms that we should watch out for in individuals who have the tendency to run away, what prompts them to run away, and what kind of personality traits they define. I think now, if you keep watching us, you will be interested to know what are the substance abuses that runaways get into, the different problems that they can get into, physical, emotional, psychological. So as I was asking, Dr. Sadaqat, thank you for staying on with us. I would like to ask that why is it so prevalent in runaways that they fall to substance abuse, alcoholism, sniffing glue, they get into bad company? Could you explain that a little bit?
This is basically a double jeopardy because on the one hand, the people who belong to households where alcoholism and drug abuse is already existing, occurring there in the family, they run away most often than other society members. But on the other hand, when they run away from home, they just fall prey to the same thing they were running away, because on the streets there are drugs, there are alcohol, there are marijuana, there are so many things they fall prey to. Absolutely.
What is WillingWays doing to help runaways? What is your strategy?
WillingWays is basically a facility for the treatment of alcoholics, but as a social service of WillingWays, it has established a helpline, a 24-hour toll-free helpline for the people who have the tendency to run away, who like to run away, and the family who worries about a family member who wants to run away again and again.
And what is this helpline, Dr.
The number of this helpline is 0800 22786, and this helpline works 24 hours a day.
And on an average, how many phone calls do you receive?
We receive about 50 calls a week. There are very few calls, there are not many calls, because people feel a lot of shame because of this issue is full of shyness, and they don't feel much courage to talk openly on the helpline. And whenever they talk, they also like to be anonymous all the time, and they want some help in the shape of a consultation.
Is there a difference between missing people and runaway people? We were talking about it. Is there?
There is a lot of difference between missing people and runaways, but when somebody runaways, the family panics like as if they have been kidnapped, or if they are the missing people. There is a lot of difference between a person who runs away. He takes the responsibility of his needs and protection as compared to a missing person or a kidnapped person. So family should never panic when somebody runs away, and they should think about what to do. They should talk to a professional first, and then they can develop a strategy to bring their loved one back to their home.
What is the success rate of people actually coming back, people who run away?
Normally a runaway comes back. It is a repetitive phenomenon. It is a way to cope with life. So runaways mostly come back. Missing people and kidnapped people have a very poor ratio to come back as compared to runaways. Runaways like to go and like to come back. It is a repetitive phenomenon.
Dr. Saab, I would like to ask you that does economy play a part in, economics play a part in people running away? You constantly hear about men abandoning families, their wives, their children, and just disappearing. So is it a stress? If you hear about people killing themselves because they couldn't take on the responsibility of a family, so does that play true to runaways as well?
Economy does not play any role in runaways. It is the interaction, it is the communication, it is the kind of listening people give to each other which plays a greater role in the runaway phenomena. Runaway is actually a cycle. Initially the cycle takes place a little longer gaps between one runaway and another runaway, but when the runaway becomes repetitive in nature, you can clearly anticipate the next phase of the cycle. And there are three phases in a cycle of a runaway. First phase is the blast, when the person runs away, and the second phase is when the Prince Charming comes back. He comes back and he is welcomed back, and he starts living in a peaceful manner for a while, and then there is a build up of neurotransmitters because of the interaction of the person with the family, and there are constant irritations in the families. There are the families taking the stands, the person is refusing to accept the stands, and then he builds up to a runaway, and then there is again a runaway blast. So these three phases are very, very clear-cut phases in which family people run away and come back and then build up to run away again. And a cycle, if you want to interrupt a cycle, it is easy to interrupt it at a phase which is easier to interrupt, and that is when the person comes back. And that is the time to talk to the person on this subject, and you have to talk assertively, and you need to maintain that love and respect and all the time while you talk to the person. Use
counseling as well. I think the whole family could do with some counseling at that
Yes, family needs to go into the counseling, and it is mandatory that you are in constant touch with the professional, because if you want to reduce the damage coming out of a runaway, you need to consult a counselor in this connection.
So first of all, does WillingWays provide counseling services?
Yes,
for the family?
WillingWays does provide services.
And then if we as individuals, I mean, if there are people watching the show out there, what can we do if not just for our own families, but basically to generally raise the awareness level? And I mean, you always have some sort of agenda that, you know, this can be done by general public as well. This sort of responsibility can be taken up. What about runaways?
It is very easy to create this kind of awareness in the families that we need to talk to each other. We need to prevent that communication gap which starts existing in the families. We need to listen to each other, and moreover, when we talk to the other person, we don't need to vent our anger. We don't need to talk even when we are angry. We can wait for a while, and when we are a little relaxed, then we can talk to each other. We can prepare ourselves before talking, and we can definitely tell our observation to the other person without attacking on his personality. We don't have to make him wrong. We don't have to make us right also. And if we talk in the language of I language, then I think it will work better. If we talk to the other person in you language and accuse him of certain things, it will end up nowhere.
And the third stage would set in. So before we break off, is there a volatile age bracket for when runaway behavior tends to be at its maximum and parents need to watch out for it?
Yes, it is the teenage.
All right.
Most people run between 13 and 19, and 6 out of 1 adults, they run away from their home between the age of 13 and 19.
1 out of 6.
1 out of 6. And we need to concentrate on this fact, and we need to understand that young people are undergoing identity crisis also during their adolescence.
So they have that baggage as well.
And they have lot of things in their mind. They are cooking up lot of stories in their mind, and they have a communication gap with their family, and we need to mend that communication gap first.
So teen years are the key years, as always.
As always, the notorious teen years. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Saab. It's been very enlightening, actually. We were thinking that economy and economics and you know, there are a lot of different triggers that work to it, but it really is just about the environment at home. It is about personalities bouncing off each other.
I like what you said about toxic personalities. I think there are people who are toxic.
Absolutely.
And some of them are very sacred in the families. Parents, the grandparents, sometimes they are trying to be toxic, and they feel entitled to produce toxicity for their family members.
That's very interesting. So why do they like to create toxicity?
They don't know they are doing it.
They don't know they're doing it.
They don't mean it. They are very well-meaning people, but they just don't know that they are trying to be toxic, and they actually are trying to be well-meaning people, but they are becoming toxic.
I think in a society like ours, and I wanted to ask you, but the conversation would have gone out of hand. The same sort of behavioral tendencies that would lead to suicide, is that the same package as that would lead to runaway?
Yes. Ultimately, when somebody keeps on running away and the problem is not solved,
the eventual escape
then they learn
suicide.
helplessness, and helplessness ultimately leads to suicide tendency.
Dr. Saab, what can family members do to help runaways?
Family members can do a lot of things to prevent runaways in their loved one, and they can talk to him in a very, very smooth manner. They can prepare themselves first, and then they can talk to him when he is calm and they are themselves calm. Apparently family members seem to do lot of things to prevent the runaways. They try to prevent runaway all the time, but seeming to do something is not doing, and trying to do something is not doing. Doing is doing. And if you talk to the person in a structured manner, the structured intervention is something which family members can learn first from a professional, and then they can talk to the person. And the right moment to talk to the person is when he comes back from a runaway, because that is the time when family is basically reluctant to talk to him, because they think that in this way they can instigate another runaway at the same time. But the reality is that runaway needs a refractory time also. When somebody comes back, there is hardly any chance of him running again, and he can definitely be more comfortable talking on this subject. But you can never prevent a runaway when the blast stage is approaching and then somebody has to run away.
That's very interesting to know that you know, one has to avail the opportunity to talk to them when they come back home and they've already experienced the runaway experience and are now beginning to feel settled again in their family.
Actually, it is a window of opportunity which opens when the person comes back. And if we do not avail this opportunity, the window is going to be closed very soon, and then day by day it will become difficult to prevent a runaway, and ultimately the same thing will happen again. The good thing and the bad thing about things happening in cycle is that they are repetitive. This is the bad part, and the good part is that they have a weak phase where you can always interrupt the cycle. So we should look for a weaker phase of a cycle in many things, because there are things which go on happening in cycles, and the weakest phase of the cycle is actually the strongest phase also, but it is your opportunity for intervention. It is the best opportunity to interrupt the weakest phase of a cycle, and when a cycle is broken at any of its phase, it's broken forever.
Thank you. On that note, thank you very much, Dr. Saab. Thank you.
We've got to go to break, but as promised, the TFP style is to actually look at the psychiatric angle behind an issue as well. And after the break, we will be talking to our psychologist, who will try and identify some of the reasons as to why this problem exists anyway. So stay with us. Please join us after this break.